Welcome to the Style Free Podcast, where a father and son detail and digress on a wide variety of topics within music, art, family, and culture. Your hosts are Professor Stephen J. Tyson Sr. and Jr., also known as Dad and Papo. In today's episode, we enjoy an incredible conversation with Charlie Collins, former head of security for Motown Records and road manager for Stevie Wonder, Kool and the Gang, and more. We also discuss Charlie's magnificent insights into artists like Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson, Martha Reeves, and many, many more.
Okay, Charlie, it's wonderful to talk with you, and thank you so much for being on this Style Free podcast with myself and my son.
I appreciate being here. Hello, Papa.
How you doing, Charlie?
We're here with Charlie Collins, here to talk about his life experiences, notably at Motown, working with Stevie Wonder as his road manager, I think among other responsibilities. And Mr. Collins, or Charlie, we think our audience would appreciate understanding some of the experiences that help prepare you for your life in the world of entertainment. I'd like to start off, though, by just some basic information. What's your full name?
Charles Tyler Collins.
So where were your parents? What were your parents' names and where were they from?
Well, my father was born somewhere down south, and my mother was from St. Louis. Of course, I was born in Oberlin, Ohio.
What was it like growing up in Ohio, in the town? What are some of your earliest memories?
None whatsoever. I was born in Oberlin, Ohio, and we moved all around. But I can't remember Oberlin at all. Can't remember Oberlin. Nope. Well, all I remember is a small town where I was born. And I think my mother was in school there.
Did you have any hobbies growing up?
No. Well, most of my growing up experiences were in Harlem. Some of it was kind of rough,
Now, about how old were you?
Let's see. I was about 10 or 11, 12, in that area, in that year. And I went to Catholic school, and I wasn't Catholic.
Oh.
But that was a good school, and I had to go to Mass every Sunday.
What do you remember the name of that school?
Resurrection. Let's see, it was on 151st Street.
Yes. That's the same church that my brother was married in.
Really?
And that is the same church where the pastor of that church was Father Lucas, Larry Lucas. But that was many years later.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? It's a small world.
Yeah.
So what are some of the hobbies? What kind of things did you get into when you were growing up there in Harlem?
Not much. Me and schoolwork didn't get along. I went to 4 different high schools. After I got out of Resurrection, I went to another high school, then I went to another high school. Mm-hmm. I went to Springfield, Ohio. I was good in sports, but that's about it.
Okay. Which sports?
Baseball, primarily, and football. And I went to Oakwood, near Poughkeepsie, New York. I lasted a year there. And my father got me out of there and sent me back to Springfield. Now, I had been in Springfield for 1 year at a Catholic school. I did well. Then I went to Oakwood, then I didn't do too well there. Then I went back to Springfield High. Mm-hmm. And eventually graduated in 1953. And then after that, only thing I came back to New York, and I met a friend in Ohio, on the street corner. And I asked him what he was doing. He said, "Listen, I'm going to college." I said, "Oh, great, where?" He said, "Morgan State." I said, "Where's that?" He said, "It's in Baltimore. Why don't you go?" I said, "Okay." I asked my mother, I said, "Listen, I want to go to Morgan." So I went to Morgan. And that's where I met my wife, lady who became my wife. And I lasted a year there before they kicked me out of there. What did I do? I was breaking into a washing machine. Me and a friend of mine, we decided we wanted to break into a washing machine and get the money. which was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. So we got to change. So the next morning, I got a knock on the door, and I had a nickname, Jazzbo. To this day, everybody calls me that. I said, hello, who is it? He says, the dean. Oh, I said, hi, Dean, what can I do for you? He said, I think you know, meet me in the president's office in 10 minutes. So they knew they had me. And by noon, I was walking up Cold Spring Lane, and I went downtown and joined the Air Force. And I called my mother and told my mom, Mom, I'm joining the Air Force. Of course, she said, what? But she was always saying, what with me? So I did 4 years in the Air Force. I came out, got married. And one day I just said, I think I want to go back to Morgan. So I called Morgan. I spoke to the president, I think. And I said, listen, this is Charlie Collins, jazz boy. I was a student there, and I wasn't a very good student, but now I'm doing a lot better, and I'm married, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, can I come back? And they said, yes, just pay for the washing machine.
Wow.
And that was it. Stephen, it was only $30-some, and I was back in college.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Incredible. Where did you get the nickname Jazzbo from?
Well, when I first got there, I was like a freshman. I got on a football team, and there was a disc jockey in New York named Al Jazzbo Collins. And the stupid football players kept saying, is that your father? I said, no. Is that your uncle? I said, no. So they just started calling me Jazzbo. And to this day, there are people who still call me Jazzbo, and they would introduce me to their parents. His name is Charlie. Charles, come on. But anyway, that name stuck with me. And to this day, there are a lot of musicians who call me Jazzbo. In fact, one of the guys who just passed away a couple of days ago, D.T. Thomas.
Yes. Rest in peace.
He hired me for Kool and the Gang. And he passed away a couple of days ago. And but he always called me Jazzbo, so that stupid name stuck.
Well, our condolences, of course. D.T. is, one of the important members of that pioneering group, Kool and the Gang. Now, when you were growing up, we talk about different cultural icons of the day and people who inspired others. Who were some of the people that inspired you? Perhaps they were role models to you. Can you talk about some of those individuals?
Let's see. I can't remember. There were athletes. As I got a little older, Muhammad Ali and
Joe Lewis's, Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Robinson.
Oh yeah, and I met him, and I had a friend who was a fighter, Tony Anthony, and we were driving down 7th Avenue one time, and we were close. So he saw Sugar Ray on the corner. He pulled over, and so the guy said, "Hey, Tony, how you doing?" So my wife was in the front seat. So he put his finger under her chin and said, "Who is this?" So Tony said, "Hey, Ray, that's his wife. That's Charlie's wife." So he said, "Oh, sorry, I'm sorry." I said, "It's okay, man." And he was one of my heroes, Ray Robinson. And I saw him again once when I was in Motown, and I had to go to the airport to pick him up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's one of my duties.
Yes.
That Motown thing was crazy. I'm here to tell you.
So before we get to Motown itself, because I know there's some amazing encounters there, what were some of the other jobs you had before arriving at Motown?
Well, the biggest job I had before I got there was I was a federal narcotics agent with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and that's how I got to Motown, because one of my friends at the Bureau of Narcotics became director of security at Motown, and he was the one who called me and got me to come to Detroit and meet Berry Gordy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was about the only big job I had after I got out of the Air Force. Yes. Was the Bureau of Narcotics. And that was kind of nuts. I'll tell you a story, one little story before we get into it. I remember on a particular undercover assignment, because, most of the Black agents back then, that's all we did is undercover work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we did. And I remember one time I was on an undercover assignment and it got a little hairy. It was dark. And when I got back home, I noticed that all my bullets were on top of the dresser. And I asked my wife, I said, "What, did I go on this assignment without any bullets?" She said, "I guess so."
Mm.
So I said,
wow.
"Fix me a cup of coffee." I was real nervous because on that particular undercover job, it was shaky and it got scary. But I knew I had my gun. It was in the back of my belt, and I did not know I did not have any bullets.
Wow.
So he says, "You'll never see that in a movie."
No. That's pretty incredible. There were a number of, as I'm sure you know, a number of people entertainers who came out of Harlem. I don't know if you had any opportunity to encounter them, but some of them who were living in Harlem, I believe, were Frankie Lyman and Little Willie John at some point.
Yeah, and that is another story, Little Willie John. When I was in Detroit, I was with Stevie, and I came home, and I heard some people playing my piano downstairs in my basement. And I asked my wife, Peachy, I said, "Who the hell is that?" So that's a friend of Tracy's high school. His name was Keith John. I said, "Okay." And I later found out that Keith and Kevin, they were the sons of Little Willie John, who was one of my heroes, because I was really into blues.
Yes.
And I had met Little Willie John, and now I'm talking to his son, who later joined Stevie. And in fact, he's still with him as a background singer. And that's the Little Willie John, Keith John thing. That was...
Wow. Little Willie John. I remember I used to listen to radio in New York, where they were playing a lot of R&B, doo-wop, and so forth, music from the 50s primarily. And I remember one of the songs that really appealed to me was a song called "Talk to Me."
Talk to me, yeah.
Yes. Beautifully done by Little Willie John. Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently his sister, Mabel, did backup. Well, didn't she perform for Motown as well as backup Ray Charles?
I think she did some Motown work because I would hear Keith saying Mabel all the time, but I never met her. Mm-hmm. But I think she did some work at Motown for a bit,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go to Motown then. First of all, had you heard of Motown before you were contacted to take a position there?
Well, I think so, but I was an agent, and I was living in Columbia, I think, somewhere down south. And my friend from the Bureau of Narcotics called me, and he said, "Are you getting tired of all this undercover work?" I said, "Am I?" "Of course." He said, "Well, how would you like to come up to Detroit and join me at Motown?" So I said, "Whoa, okay." So he said, "Listen, I've got you a plane ticket." That's the way they did things at Motown. They just did things. I've got you a ticket. We'll see you tomorrow, and I want you to meet Barry Gordy. So I told my wife, I said, okay, Peach, I'm going to Detroit to meet Barry Gordy. I might get a job in Motown. So I did. And in fact, when I met him, I was in the car with him. My knees were knocking. I was so scared. And Barry Gordy was in the backseat, and he was asking me questions. And he would say, Charlie, now, there are a couple of guys, Holland, Georgia Holland, who were my heroes. They wrote all those songs for Motown. They this, they that, they this, Holland, Georgia Holland, a couple other guys. And could you handle, following them around? And I said, well, this is like some more undercover work. So he hired me. So I called my wife. I said, listen, I'm working for Motown now. And they put me in a hotel that was like Mission Impossible. I wanted to go to the headquarters to meet all the stars, the heroes like Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. They said, no, I want you to stay in the hotel. I said, okay. And what do I do? Don't worry about it, Charlie. We'll give you assignments every day. It was just like the TV show. And the secretary would bring me my assignments. And I would have to find people and do things, whatever Barry wanted me to do, blah, 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 blah. And that was my introduction into at Motown. It took me a while to get down to Motown to meet the stars. And of course, inevitably Stevie Wonder, But that was something, staying in that hotel. And I said, okay. And I was following people one time. And so that lasted for a while. And then, of course, things got better for me in terms of my job at Motown. I became I was like the assistant director of security, but I didn't know it yet. And then Stevie Wonder and everybody else. It was exciting. There was a lot of different stories. I don't know if you want to get into all that.
Oh, absolutely.
So how did you end up transitioning from working security with Motown to getting more involved with the artists and managing their tours and things of that nature?
Well, I was doing the security work, but come on, there wasn't that much security to be done. And one day, who was it? You and Abner, God rest his soul, he came to me and he said, Charlie, we're thinking about making you a road manager. I said, okay. A road manager for any particular artist? He said, well, we're not sure yet, but we think you can handle it. So I became a road manager, and they would send me out with different people.
Wow.
Now, just for our audience, the Ewart Abner was the president of Motown at that time?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, he was president. So I became a road manager, and for different people, I would go out with different people. And who was the guy who said, "War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing." Who wrote that?
Edwin Starr.
Edwin. I went out with Edwin. Went on the road with him. He's pretty cool. And he liked to gamble. We'd be on the plane and we'd be playing poker. He'd be sitting beside me and I could see his hand. Oh, this is going to be great. So, coming from Harlem, I was a halfway thug anyway.
Right.
Every time I would look at his hand, I'd get and he would bet something. I said, oh, this guy's a fool. You would bet something and I'd raise it and I just took all his money.
That's hilarious.
And, later on I told him, I said, you have to be careful when you play poker, especially with a guy like me. And he's going like, what do you mean guy like you? Well, I'll tell you later. So, but he was a guy I went out with some other people, and there are a bunch of people, spinners, and this and that, but it got to Stevie Wonder. And those were the days before the limousines and the fancy hotels. We'd fly to a place and I would rent 3 station wagons. One for me and Stevie, and one for the background.
Wow. So this was before Stevie kind of blew up into the superstar that we all remember and know him as?
This was before that. And then I had another station wagon for his equipment, which wasn't much. As you can realize, it will all fit into one station wagon.
Yeah.
And one station wagon for the guys, whatever musicians were with us. And we would go to a Holiday Inn and check in. And I'd get him a room with 2 beds because we put a piano on one bed and he'd be on the other bed. And we'd set it up, man. He would play. And that's another story that I'll tell you later. The Holiday Inn and all that stuff.
So what were your initial impressions about Stevie Wonder and his music? I assume this is back in the 60s?
Yeah. I thought he was from another planet.
Wow, yeah.
He, for instance, one day he called me and he said, come down right away. So, I was on the same floor. I went flying down to his room. So I went in and I said, what's up? He's sitting in the dark playing his piano, was on the other bed. And I said, what's that? He said, man, I dreamed this song. I said, you dreamed it? Wow, it's great, Steve. Are you going to record it? He said, I don't know. I said, you don't know? I mean, Stephen, this was a great song. So I went flying down to my room. I called my wife 2, 3 in the morning. I said, you got to wake up. You got to hear this story. I don't think he ever recorded that song.
Wow.
It was something. If you heard it, you would say, wow. And he dreamed it and he didn't record it.
This is really interesting, Charlie. We know, of course, and you were right there on the front lines, that Motown had a certain formula. Of course, you had HDH, Holland Dozier Holland. You had the assembly line approach. You had people who were being choreographed. It was Charlie Atkins and so many others that were part of this infrastructure that groomed and prepared these practitioners of the sound, what became known as the sound of young America. But Stevie, and I think Marvin Gaye later on, suggested to us that they were pushing against that formula, that there was something in them that wanted to follow their own path. And it seems as though you got a glimpse of that in Stevie early on.
No question. We used to open up the show. What was the name of that song? For once in my life, there is someone who
Yeah.
Yes, for once in my life.
Yeah, and who wrote that?
It was Ron Miller and Orlando Burden.
It was Ron Miller. And I used to say, Steve, maybe we can get one of your songs we can open up the show with. I mean, he had a gazillion songs.
Wow.
And we opened up the show with Ron Miller's song. I said, wow, okay, this is something for once in my life. I'll never forget that. As long as I live.
Wow.
That's amazing. Now, you were on the road as the roadman. You were traveling what some audience members might not be familiar with, called the Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thinking about places like the Apollo, the Royal Peacock in Atlanta, the Fox Theater in Detroit, Howard Theater in Washington, and the Uptown in Philly. What was that like? Were there any particular memorable places and experiences that you had traveling to some of these places?
Of course, the Apollo was my town. I was raised about from 150th Street to 125th, 25 blocks away from the Apollo. So but those other places, they were just another gig to me.
Yes.
And I can remember one time we had a gig at the Apollo, and I think I counted like 25 people in there.
Wow.
And I said, everybody move up, come up closer to stage.
Yeah.
That was something. They had 25 people to see Stevie Wonder, but that was,
So this was during the days of the Motown Review?
Oh, yeah, pretty much so. I remember that, Stevie was part of that, but not a big time part of it, but he was. I remember doing one show at the Fox Theater in Detroit, but that was before I became road manager. And after I became road manager, of course, everything changed. I became a big wheel, quote unquote. Not really, I was just a road manager. And I met all the other road managers, and that was something else.
That's quite an elite club. I mean, these road managers, and I want to talk about that in a moment. I understand that there are a number of challenges to life on the road. I'm curious to know what some of those challenges were that you faced, and how did you negotiate, whether it was in the South or the Northeast, in the U.S. or in the West or in the Caribbean, Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East. What prepared you to be able to do the job that you did?
Well, having been a narcotics agent, et cetera, I was kind of smart. And when it came to dealing with people that I had to deal with, say, with maybe not a rough voice, but I knew how to handle myself. Let me put it that way. And nobody, quote unquote, messed with me because a lot of them knew my background. But being a road manager, back then with Motown Records was exciting. And for a lot of people who were there, especially the people at the places where we played, they were excited too to know that Stevie Wonder's road manager had been a narcotics agent and this, that, and the other. And I got along with everybody just about. I got along with everybody, especially the guys at the Apollo Theater, Charlie Atkins, and some other people. But I didn't have any problems with them, and they didn't have any problems with me because it was Stevie Wonder, even though it was like the beginning of his rise to stardom. And I can remember asking him, Steve, there's some songs I think you should put out there. I remember when he came out with Music of My Mind, I said, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Whoa. He had some music in his head, in the back, in the top. I don't know where it was, but it was in there somewhere. It's like I told my wife, he's from another planet. He could, anytime you dream a song and then decide not to record it, that was something. But we got along together. We got along with each other.
That's amazing. As Stevie started evolving from the late 60s into this Music of My Mind era, and also known as the golden era of Stevie Wonder's music, did you notice anything in him about his creativity or his artistry that was kind of changing at all, whether it was in the tours or in the studio or anything?
Not really. I didn't notice anything other than the fact that he would come up with songs that were just great.
Wow. Yeah.
And they were just great. And I was so happy being part of that. Yeah, it was something else.
Now, Stevie, he learned from other people too, as well, didn't he? I mean, he had great writers also at Motown, from Smokey Robinson. And of course, a mentor to Stevie was people like Clarence Paul.
Yeah.
And he collaborated with Sylvia Moy and others. Can you talk about some of the people that you feel inspired Stevie Wonder as a musical artist, either as a writer or as a performer?
Not really. I never got a chance to meet with him on that level. That wasn't part of the scenario with Stevie and I.
Mm-hmm.
I was just the road manager, and there would come times when they would say, "All right, Charlie, take him to Australia." Okay. I went to Australia 4 times.
Wow.
4 times. But that's the way they did things.
Yeah.
And, John Coursey, the friend of mine from Your Narcotics who got me to Motown, he called me one day. He says, Barry wants you to go to Los Angeles. I said, I have to fly. I was afraid to fly that. I didn't like to fly. He said, yeah, he wants you to do some, set up some security for Marvin Gaye. I said, okay, how do I do that? Flew to LA, and I'm looking at a picture on the wall now, the guy hired who became security for Michael Jackson. But anyway, I called the detective agency. I said, this is Charlie Collins in Motown, blah, blah, blah. Send me somebody. So that became the Marvin Gaye thing. And he became security for Marvin Gaye. But anyway, that's the way they did things at Motown. They would say, here, do this. Go to Los Angeles. I'd never been to Los Angeles. And they set me up in this hotel, big, fabulous hotel where I'd never been. And I said, oh, God.
So this is during the time when Motown or was transitioning from Detroit to Los Angeles?
Yeah, that was prior to, because I can remember when they decided to move to Los Angeles, it was just like, okay, we're going to LA. And they told the rest of the musicians and artists. So I eventually went to LA and learned about my wife and my kids later. But anyway, it didn't seem like it was much of a big deal. It's the way they did things at Motown.
Yeah.
That's just the way they did things.
So there were some people who were not able or not willing to make that transition. Is that fair to say?
No question about it. No question about it. Because I think where the artists, they had a little studio there, and somebody had put a sign up there, we're going to move to LA. And that's how they found out they were going to Los Angeles.
Wow.
So I said, whoa, okay.
Yeah, that's cold.
Yeah, that was cool. Now, I don't know whether that's a true story or not, but one of the guys who told me that stuff was an artist, and he said, just decided going to LA, move to LA. I said, okay, well, if you want your job, I guess you'll come to LA. And most everybody did. And in no time, they had this great, big, fabulous office way up on Sunset Boulevard. And here I was. But I wasn't with Stevie then.
You were with Marvin?
No, I was there with the security.
Speaking of Marvin, though, did you have an opportunity to see Stevie and Marvin interact?
I did not. I was at the gym once working out, and everybody knew I was at Motown. So when I was checking out, the guy said, hey, man, Marvin is dead.
Wow.
I said, what? He said, yeah, his father just killed him. I said, oh, God. Now, that's how I found out that Marvin was killed.
That's horrible.
That is horrible.
And I had known him, and we had talked. In fact, I saw him he was on the street near where I lived, and he was running. And I said, Marvin, what are you doing out here running with these jogging clothes? He said, I'm going to try out for the Detroit Lions. I said, you what? He said, I'm going to try out for the Lions. I said, Marvin, are you crazy?
Wait, Marvin Gaye was trying to try out for the Detroit Lions?
Yep. Marvin,
Wow.
they'll kill you out there. You sing songs. So I got out of the car and said, Marvin, don't do it. Because we used to hang out at the bar with Lem Barney and a couple of other people. And I said, Marvin, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, man. You're going to get hurt out there. It's like, I can handle myself. Yeah, right. So I think he tried out. I think he lasted about 4 minutes.
That's longer than I would have expected.
He didn't last long.
Wow.
The Detroit Lions.
What was Marvin like as a person?
Very nice. I introduced him to my wife and to my daughter. He was just very nice. They had something at Barry Gordy's house, and he was there, and I introduced him. He was just very nice.
And Barry himself, what was his personality like? What do you remember about Barry?
Pretty cool. He was very good. And I didn't get a chance to interact with him that often, but when I did, it was Mr. Gordy. How are you? And this, that, the other. But he was cool.
Now, to go back for a moment to the road managers, that you got to meet some of the other road managers. I recall Alan Leeds wrote a book about his experiences on the road with James Brown. Did you have a chance to talk with people like Alan Leeds or even meet James Brown?
I remember meeting James Brown. In fact, we all did a show together, and he was on the show. God bless you, God bless you. That's what he was saying. I said, Mr. Brown, how you doing? God bless you, God bless you. It was after the show, but James was quite the entertainer.
Yes.
But I remember Anita Baker. She was on the show with us, and she wanted to.
Anita Baker. Yeah, she's from Detroit too.
Yeah, she wanted to come in and say hi to Stevie. I said, "Come on in." We were changing clothes. She said, "No, he's dressed." So she wrote a note. I said, "Hi, Stevie, Anita." I said, "What do you want me to do with that?" Stevie. I said, "Okay." I put it in my scrapbook. Hi, Stevie, Anita.
That's really cool. That's a memento to keep. That's for sure.
Oh,
absolutely.
I think it's in New York in one of my scrapbooks, but I kept that thing. Hi, Stevie, Anita. Little blind guy. Okay.
And Stevie's known for his sense of humor and pranks, and I know you could probably recount some of those, but you also have a sense of humor, as I understand it. I came across an article where you and Stevie and some members of Wonderlove were in a hotel on Fifth Avenue. I think this was around 1974. And you and Mike Sembello, who's the guitarist and composer with Wonderlove, were in a hotel, and supposedly you told Stevie, check out this great riff I just created on the guitar. And Stevie was like, what? Oh, wow. And he was listening to it. And then he reached out and he put his hands on the guitar, and it turned out to be Mike playing on the guitar, not you.
That's something we would have done.
Yeah. Well, somebody seemed to find the time to put that one together, because I thought that was funny. Shows your sense of humor. What are some of your favorite Stevie Wonder songs? And what was it like being with him in the studio?
Oh, well, I think one of my favorite songs is, he has so many. I remember the line in the song that says, the writer takes his pen to write the words again.
All in Love is Fair.
All in Love is Fair.
From Inner Visions.
Yeah, and I remember when he thought of that line, because I'm thinking, I think he asked Abner to write that down. Write it down.
Wow.
Writer takes his pen to write the words again. I said, oh, okay.
Wow.
I love that song.
Yes.
And Science is a little, of course, but
yes.
There were so many. There were just so many. His real name. Do you know his real name?
Is it a Steve Land?
Yeah, but it's spelled Stev, like Stevland.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Evelyn Morris.
Yes.
I said, okay. Stevlin Morris, but everybody called him Stevie.
And apparently he was very close to his mother, Lula Mae Hardaway.
Yes.
And I think they wrote some music together, and his brothers, Milton and Calvin, were on the road with him at some points as well.
Yes, not for long.
Okay. What impressed you and continues to impress you most about Stevie Wonder? At the end of the day, what do you think his legacy will be?
His ability to write music out of the clear blue sky. His ability to do that. I think that's his legacy. It was just incredible. I mean, it's just like I told you about the time he dreamed that song. And when you think of all the lyrics that Stevie was responsible for, man, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
I just happened to be in Liverpool with Kool and the Gang. I was working with them for a moment. And one of the stations in Liverpool played Songs in the Key of Life all day.
Wow.
All day they played Songs in the Key of Life. And I said, wow. And that's when I got back to New York with the big billboard.
So how did you end up transitioning to work with Stevie Wonder to working with Kool and the Gang, or were you working with them both at the same time?
No, not at the same time. I stopped being road manager for Stevie because I was getting tired of being on the road. And I was in Detroit. I kind of wanted to spend more time with my wife and kids, etc. And one day, DT called me and he said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah, about what?" "About being a road manager for Kool and the Gang." So I met him at a hotel and we talked and we came to an agreement on salary and he hired me. And
Wow.
that was my Kool and the Gang thing.
So it was mainly the idea about just being able to be closer to family and be a little more or be a little less nomadic.
Yeah. Right. I just wanted to come home.
Yeah.
So I got home and, it's like a lot of times people would say, you would leave Stevie. I said, it wasn't about leaving Stevie, it was about coming home.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to be home for a while. And the funny thing, I got a job a few blocks away from my house selling used cars. And one of the first cars I sold, it had a leak in the gas tank. And the guy came back and said, "Mr. Collins, this car is leaking gas." Anyway, that job didn't last long. And then the guy from Kool and the Gang called me, DT. Hey, man.
What are some of the strong memories you have of Kool and the Gang, of Callous, of DT, of Kool, all the members in your experience with them?
Yeah, I can remember when they were like into the Muslim thing, Kool and the Gang, well, Kool was, and his brother, Ronald. Kool got the name, I think we were in Chicago, and he got the name Muhammad. And his brother got the name Khalis. And I remember one time we were on a plane, and talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they didn't like me because, I would say, where is he living now? In a while, he's going to be dead, because he's got asthma and he's got some serious things, Robert. But Robert wasn't in it. And I remember one time we got to, Chicago, and we went there, and then the driver who had drove the limousine said, "I've never been in that house, man. It's some house."
Oh, Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we were inside, and it was some kind of a house, man. It was, woo. They had glasses with like gold around the top. I mean, it was some kind of, I think Wallace Mohammed was staying there then. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I got along pretty well with most of those guys, especially DT.
What do you remember about DT?
Well, he hired me, and he would call me once a month, and he would say, how the girls, talking about my daughters, because he met them, and he was pretty cool. And then George Brown, the drummer, he and I were very close.
What was it like when your son-in-law became the lead singer for Cool?
I didn't know that. I was talking to Sammy Austin, who I had hired him. He came on the road with me. Then he started being on the road with Cool and them, and they lost their lead singer for some reason. He said, "Man, you got to hear this new guy." I said, "Oh, yeah?" He said, "Oh, yeah, he can sing." But he didn't tell me it was Gary Brown. This new guy. I said, "Oh, okay." So later I found out it was my son-in-law. I said, "Wow, okay."
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's, because I didn't know anything about Cool and Gang then. Stevie just sent me, for my birthday was August 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And he sent me, a happy birthday thing.
Oh, that's cool.
It was long.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Did Stevie sing his happy birthday version or no?
No. It's another thing. Well, his first wife, Sarita, she and I were born on the same day.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So I sent her a birthday message, although she had passed away. So he sent me something back.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yes, I sent her a birthday thing, and he sent me one. Happy birthday, Charlie. God give, blah, blah, blah.
So, Charlie, you've talked a lot about Stevie Wonder as a visionary composer, as an artist. Could you say something about Stevie Wonder, the activist, the humanitarian, whether it's dealing with apartheid, whether it's dealing with civil rights, whether it's advancing Martin Luther King's birthday as a national holiday? When did you first learn about that side or encounter that side of Stevie Wonder?
Well, I guess I first learned about it when he decided he wanted me to take him to D.C. 1,000 times when he was trying to get the birthday thing.
Yeah.
And that was sometimes, Steve.
How so?
I don't know how many times, but it was quite a few times we went to Washington in order to try to get a birthday. I'll never forget those days. Seems like it was always cold and snowy, but I learned about that. With that DC thing, I really learned how he was and how he felt about things. And he was for real.
Yeah.
He was for real. And I remember one time we went to Capitol, we were in somebody's office. Who was that guy? He was the Speaker of the House. What was his name?
Tip O'Neill?
Tip O'Neill. We went to Tip O'Neill's office. And Stevie didn't mince words. And I was just saying, ooh, okay. Man, that's Tip O'Neill. Stevie was not playing around. And it's a funny thing, I went on the Rhine River cruise maybe 4 or 5 times. And for every birthday, they had, they would play Stevie's song, but just the first few bars of Happy Birthday. And I asked the guy, the manager of the boat, I said, "Do you know who that is?" He said, "No, not really, but we play in the first few bars for everybody who has a birthday on the boat." I said, "That's Stevie Wonder, man." So it's like I got a little something on my wall when they sent it to me. And they sent me a little postcard saying they were so happy that I had let them know, because they put it in the magazine for the cruise ship, to let people know who that was.
Yeah.
Because I just heard the first few bars, and I said, what? I said, man, that's Stevie Wonder's song. So they said, really? I said, yeah, maybe really. So, in fact, this night they even sent me a little thing that they had put in the newsletter to let people know when they heard that whose song that was. Because I don't think it got into Happy Birthday to You.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to that yet.
The part that everybody remembers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I said, oh man, these people got to know that. Yeah, he was the activist.
And he became a United Nations Messenger of Peace back in 2009.
Yeah.
And you've managed to stay in touch with Stevie all of these years. And that affection obviously is still there and still strong between both of you.
Oh, yeah, he just sent me my birthday thing.
That's amazing.
What would you say, Charlie, are some of the lessons that you've learned on the road, whether with Stevie or other groups, but just life on the road and the whole experience that you had through Motown and beyond? What are some of the important lessons that you'd like to share?
Well, I learned for the most part that I was not as important as I thought I was. You know, having been a narcotics agent and blah, 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 blah. And I learned that, you know, deep down inside, I was a road manager, and I was fortunate enough to be associated with Stevie Wonder. You know, as I got a little older, and I realized how important that was. And that was one of the lessons. And I just learned a lot of things that I just can't put my finger on. But you know, when I thought of being raised up in Harlem and knowing the people and meeting the people, and who was the writer, black guy who lived in Harlem? He wrote
Langston Hughes?
No, it wasn't Langston Hughes. It was
Claude McKay?
No, it was another guy, kind of short. And I met him, we were in France.
Oh, James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. It was James Baldwin. How you remember that? I could. And he came to the show and introduced himself. And I said, Mr. Baldwin, I know who you are. My name is Charlie Collins. So he says, I'd like to invite you and Cool and them to dinner at my house. I'll get a bunch of chicken and fry it up. So
that's amazing.
I said, okay. So I told Cool and them, and they said no. I said, what? No. That's one lesson I learned. So I told Mr. Baldwin later when I saw him, I said, Mr. Baldwin, I'm so sorry, but we can't come. Something has come up. I had to tell a big lie.
Wow.
I mean, how do you turn down James Baldwin?
Especially if he's going to fry up some chicken for you.
Yeah. You're going to fry up some chicken. James Baldwin. Oh,
it's amazing.
I said, okay. But, you know, I learned a lot of things being with those two groups, Cool and Gang, and of course, Stevie, you know,
There's stories about him being psychic, that he could pick up on things or perceive things that people, you know, would take for granted or not be consciously aware of.
Oh, yeah, no question about it.
Can you give some examples of that?
No, I can't. Not right now.
All good.
He was a big fan of Aretha Franklin, too, who also lived in Detroit at one point. Did you have a chance to meet Aretha, or did Stevie talk about any of these individuals, Miles Davis, Aretha Franklin?
I remember one time we were backstage and Aretha came in and he introduced her to me, and I was so tickled because her voice was just like the way she sang songs. And I got so tickled, man.
And Michael Jackson was a big fan of Stevie and learned from him. In fact, he and his brothers recorded on You Haven't Done Nothing on the Fulfilling List's first finale album back in '74 with Stevie. Did you have a chance to meet Michael or?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the first time I met Michael, I introduced him to, remember the guy I hired, the police officer. He became Michael's security director, and Michael used to call us pigs. Because he was driving in the car and he was seeing, "I see you, pigs." We were law enforcement, right?
I love knowing that about Michael Jackson now. That's amazing.
Yeah, he called us pigs. Michael, boy.
Did he have a great sense of humor similar to Stevie's?
Who's that, Michael?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, really?
Stevie was something else. He was Stephen Morris.
Yeah. Last question I wanted to present to you, and has to do with the importance of Black radio. There are a number of radio stations from Detroit, Chicago, LA, certainly New York, Philadelphia, other places. And there are names like Frankie Crocker,
Georgie Woods,
yes. Herb Kent, the cool gent over in Chicago. Can you talk about the role that some of these radio personalities played in terms of advancing the music of people like Stevie Wonder and maybe some of your encounters with them?
They were disc jockeys and they were pretty cool. They were cool dudes. And none of them were, they know who they were, and they knew who Stevie Wonder was. And whenever we were in town and I would meet them, they were always jovial and, everybody knew their place, quote unquote, in terms of music.
Yes. Don Cornelius, of course, among them.
I remember we were doing a show in LA, and there were a bunch of people outside waiting to get in, and Don saw me and he said, Charlie, can you get me in? Because he had remembered me because I had done the show with Cool and them and everybody. He said, Charlie, can you get me away from all these people? I said, listen very carefully. When turn around, you'll walk to the corner there, you'll take a left. You'll walk down about, 30 yards. You'll see a door on the left. Open the door and come in. He said, okay. And I was standing on the inside. Oh, man. I didn't want everybody else to see what I was doing with that funding.
Yeah.
They just did a movie on him, I think. I saw something. I thought it was about Don Cornelius. I can't.
There was a production that just came out called Summer of Soul by Questlove that featured, this was taking place in Harlem, and it features some of the top acts of the day back in the late 60s.
And he also has that show that's based on his life called American Soul, too.
Maybe that was did I see that? Man, it's something, growing older and when you start seeing your friends die, and that's part of it. Growing older, that's part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And like I never thought I'd see DT die before me.
Wow, yeah.
And he died, about 3 or 4 days ago. And I said, oh, man. So,
Do the youth today and the activism that you see with the youth following George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, situations like this, does that give you hope for the future of this country, of the world?
Yeah, it has to.
Mm-hmm.
It has to. Yeah, it gives me hope. And I say, okay, we're going to get through this, around this, and on top of this. But it's going to happen. Because if you don't feel that way, you've had it. So, and it's just like, and then all of a sudden, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the guy reaching down and pulling the little baby girl up over the thing. I thought, oh, God, I don't know if I can take much more of this. It's something else. But, we just have to deal with what we have. We have to deal with what we have. And I see this crap, all these things that are going on. I think of the little children. I think about my granddaughter, who's now appearing in a show called Gossip Girls on TV.
Wow.
And her name is Savannah Lee Smith. That was Tyler's daughter. She's got a nice little role there.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
I never saw this shows of teenagers. But anyway, I'm happy for her.
Yeah. And I can definitely say that, if it wasn't for the work that you were doing with a lot of these groups and bands and artists throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s that helped to carry messages forward, like some of the messages that Stevie Wonder was putting into his music and Marvin Gaye, et cetera, there wouldn't have been that foundation for musicians, artists, and creatives today to use that platform to get their voice out and to speak on a lot of the injustices or the social issues that are going on today. So, I mean, there wouldn't be the artistry within the movement that you sort of see today without that same sort of artistry getting out and around the world through tours and through shows that were all, for a lot of these artists, managed by you. So it's a definite thank you for everything that you've done to help lay a foundation for where we are artistically today and how we can use that as a vehicle for positive change.
Exactly. It was like when Marvin Gaye came out with What's Going On? Mother, man, that song, it meant so much more than just a song.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if they wanted him to bring that out or not.
They kept it on the shelf for at least a year.
There was some controversy. It was a great song.
Yeah.
He said, it was like, what the hell is happening here?
Yes.
You people listening to me?
So music, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I wasn't.
I was going to say that music, through your experience at Motown and through your interaction with these artists, the importance, the agency of music itself became more important to you. Your understanding or appreciation for the power of music became amplified by your interaction with these individuals. Is that fair to say?
No question. When I think of, I wrote a song the other day. It was, who was the young lady dancing in the street?
Martha Reeves?
Yeah, Martha did that. And I wrote a song, and that was part of the song. I went back to Detroit to see Martha Reeves dancing in the street. And when I got there were strangers everywhere. Nobody remembered me. Things ain't gonna be the way they used to be.
Wow.
That's the song.
Wow.
That's amazing that you're still writing songs and getting that creativity yourself out there.
Well, it's Martha was, in fact, one time I went to Martha's house, see how she was doing. Barry sent me over there. She said she was doing okay. She said, "Charlie, I'll be all right. Let me show you something." She pulled a book down off of the shelf and she had a little fake pistol in it. I said, "And what are you going to do with that?" She said, "Well, if anybody comes in here," I said, "Martha, that's a fake gun." And I wanted to say, even Stevie Wonder could tell that's a fake gun. To anybody else, so she put it back.
What inspired you to write music? When did that begin for you?
I don't know. It was a long time ago. I wrote a lot of blues songs. In fact, I got them on my piano. And it weren't much of anything. One song I like it. I always sing slow walking blues. I take my time wherever I go. Never been in a hurry to get somewhere in my mind I don't even know. I sing slow walking blues wherever I go. If you want to walk with me, come on and take my hand. I ain't going nowhere fast. I'm a slow walking man. And you know.
Wow.
I'm not, you know, I haven't. I used to be somebody, now I'm just somebody else. I used to be somebody, now I'm just afraid to photograph in the basement on a dusty shelf.
Mm.
I used to be a lover man, now I'm an old man who can't find love. And I haven't finished it, but you know, hey man.
This is amazing, Charlie. This is a whole other aspect to your experience that it's incredible. First of all, I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I guess you don't need my encouragement because you've been doing it so long, but this is fantastic to hear. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this.
You got time? I wrote something for my mother on her birthday. You got time I just put this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Poor education, no representation, constant segregation. Just what do you all want from me? No miscegenation in this small, rich white nation often referred to as a democracy. I've given a gallon of blood of life an ocean of tears. And you told me to mind my manners. I've been mistreated and lynched for 300 years. While singing the Star Spangled Banner, who in the hell wrote that anyway? I say to you, mister, I'm tired of singing a song meaning little to me and your flag that flies high up in our sky, draping coffins of brothers who fought for you and died. I pray not in vain. Oh man, I'm done just what you expected of someone you never really respected. Oh man, the winter comes soon in my unheated room, and how quickly you brothers forget my place in the sun has got to be won. That's what you say when I'm down, yet I take the blame for most of your shame. When the smoke clears and the sun gunshots sound, and Hitler burned books not too long ago, and you denounce him as an unseemly strict man, yet now each day you being up burn our souls. And to the republic for which it stands, free land of liberty, I pledge, say, can you see, oh Father, which art in heaven? I can't remember, but I wrote that for my mother.
That is so moving.
Long time ago.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Charlie. This has been an incredible treat and an honor to be able to speak with you and to learn about your life experiences, notably at Motown and with Stevie Wonder and beyond. This has just been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Well, I thank you and I appreciate you having me, man.
Okay. Well, and thank you to Leslie and all those who made this moment happen. We're very appreciative to all of you. And Gary, of course, and Tracy.